Hello everybody! JGCM here. Today we are going to be reviewing Skeletonite in Another World, or Yakotsu Kishisama Taidama Isekai e Odekai Kichu. I mentioned this several times in all my videos, but I don't know if I said that right. In fact, out of all the times I've said the Japanese name, that probably sounds the most unlike what they probably actually said. But let's move past that. So, yeah, let's just hop right into this. So, what is Skeletonite in Another World? Basically, it's kind of if Overlord was more generic in a sense, where the main character, rather than being some overpowered main character who can destroy anything with a giant arsenal of people who he works with, like NPCs or stuff like that, since this is a video game world, he gets trapped in a video game. The main character gets trapped in a video game, and he's a knight with a skeleton avatar. So, yeah, it's just an armored knight with a skeleton underneath. And he goes on adventures with an elf called Arion and eventually a ninja called Chiome. And yeah, that's best I can describe without spoiling anything. So yeah, let's just get into some spoiler-free thoughts about what I thought about the series. So first off, I'd like to say something. Before this series was even announced, I actually picked up the light novels for this series, and if I'm being honest, I didn't think they were that good. I thought the first volume was okay, the second volume was okay, the third volume was okay, and by the time I got to the fourth volume, it just got boring. And that's because of its constant repetitive nature. Like, there's this one plot point thing that they do throughout the entire series that, honestly, it got boring. Like, super boring. Even after a bunch of stuff happens, it still kind of gets repetitive over time, and by the fourth volume, even though I own up to volume 8 now because I kind of overbought, I've only read up to volume 4. I've been trying to read volume 5, but I get so bored while reading it that I can't. But yeah, moving past that, what I'm trying to say is, I was a little nervous going into this anime. Like, I remember thinking most of the story was okay, and it wasn't that great, but it was at least readable. So I was a bit concerned going into the anime, thinking I'd think the exact same thing, that I just wouldn't be able to enjoy this as much because I didn't like the light novels that much. But, to my pleasant surprise, I actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and it reminded me why I actually kind of enjoyed reading the first volume so much. It wasn't the best thing I'd ever read, but the anime manages to bring that together and make it a lot of fun as a story, and makes me realize this story works really well in anime form. And it works. The main character, Ark, who is the guy in armor that's actually a skeleton underneath, he's great. In the light novels, I found him a bit boring, but in the anime, he's actually a lot more fun, especially with his more energetic attitude. And he's not at all like Einzulgon from Overlord, which I'll have to review that series eventually, since, season 4 is out now, so I'll want to check that out eventually, but I'll review that eventually. He's not like him at all. Both of them have completely different personality traits in a lot of different ways, with Ark being a lot more energetic about being in this fantasy world. And I honestly really like that, because seeing how excited Ark is about all this stuff, being like, oh my gosh, it's ninjas, oh my gosh, it's elves, it's just, seeing him so energetic and have so much fun while in this world is just really great. I have a great time watching him as the main character, and yeah, there's also a lot of other characters I really enjoy, such as Ponta. Ponta is the pet of Ark, who is actually a lot of fun too. See, although the funniest thing is, when I was reading the light novels, I thought Ponta was a boy, so when I learned in the anime that Ponta was a girl, I was just like, oh, like, I had no idea Ponta was a girl. For the longest time, I thought Ponta was a boy. So, yeah. Arion and Chiome are a bit more of a mix, though. Like, I don't mind Arion, but she's kind of, Like, she's not a terrible character, but if I had to choose between which one I like more between her and Chiome, I definitely feel like Chiome's a bit better. It's just that I don't really know how to feel about them. They feel like generic type characters, where this world is very generic. Plus, unlike in Slime, this show has political stuff in it, and I don't like the political stuff. Like, they focus a lot on the political segments of this story because they tie together with Ark's adventure, but I don't like it that much. Like, I found it to be kind of dull, and one of the biggest issues I had with the light novels was that the story was too slow, and that kind of consists in the anime as well, where it's not always super slow, but there are times where we'll either rush through everything or be too slow about something. But I still had a very good time, and without spoiling anything, I love a lot of the stories that were involved in this, and it's just a lot of fun. Which surprised me, because I was not expecting to have any fun watching this anime. I was expecting just to be kind of like, yep, I knew that happened. Cool, that happened too. I don't care. But no, I actually had a very good time watching, and definitely made me realize that this worked better, like a lot better in anime form. However, I didn't enjoy it as much when I was trying to force myself to watch it, because at first I was just like, okay, I'll force myself to watch this. But once I started just kind of like getting into it, I had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I can't really spoil or not spoil anything else, so I'm gonna hop into the spoiler section of this video now. So here is a timestamp to when the spoiler section ends. We're gonna go into a bit more of a spoiler-esque adventure here now. So if you have seen the show, I'd recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, you should skip to the end where I give my final rating. So, but yeah, again, if you have seen the show, I'd recommend sticking around. So yeah, let's just hop right into this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, countdown done, because that's where the spoiler section begins. So first thing I kind of have an unsure feeling for, and it's the way they try to convince the whole repetitiveness. What I'm talking about when I say repetitiveness is slavery, where they have to free a bunch of slaves. That story thread, even though they kind of say they don't have to do it at the end of the season, and I think that might have been the light novels, I can't be sure, since the anime definitely takes a lot more changes to it, which I honestly kind of appreciated, where I enjoyed it fine, but it got repetitive. Like, literally every single volume, even in volume 4, I believe, I believe in volume 4, they meet the elf that in the series they mentioned gets married to a human. I believe that happens in volume 4, or one of the earlier volumes, where they see she's happy. So Ariane, once again, like she does in the anime, has this little crisis in her mind, thinking that elves and humans shouldn't have actually gotten along, and this whole thing kind of repeats itself, where Ariane doesn't actually grow much as a character. Even in the anime, she doesn't do much change. In fact, out of everyone, she's probably the most boring. Like, even though I don't think Chiome has much development either, I kind of just like Chiome's personality and how she has a bit of lore behind her as a character with how the demi-humans like her are ninjas and why that came to be. It kind of adds a bit of lore to it, with Arc learning that apparently a lot of other Japanese people like him came to this world before. And that really is kind of interesting to me, because it makes you realize there's more to those characters. But by the end, when all they do the entire season is basically free slaves, it kind of got boring. Thankfully, in like the last storyline, it got a lot better, but it was a bit of a throw off for me, because I may or may not have accidentally watched episode 11, then episode 10, because I didn't realize. So yeah, I ended up watching episode 10 after episode 11, so it felt more, even though that was meant to be part of the story, it felt more like a OVA-esque story, because it's like its own self-contained story. But I still had a very fun time with it, and Arc, Ariane, and Chiome are a good group, even though Chiome really doesn't do much in this season, sadly, because she's not an official member of the group yet, and that doesn't happen until volume 4, which, so far, despite my grudges against finishing volume 4, it was probably one of the best ones in the series. But that's not saying much, because I've just thought the whole series has been just kind of okay at first. Like, so far from what I've read, it's been okay. But moving past that, there is something I want to share that I actually have a gripe about that isn't really anime related as much as it is just a problem I have with the show itself, and that is its opening. Like, I am happy that I think it's Pelly K, made the opening. It shows that even artists who just do song covers can make like anime openings, but it was ruined by the fact of what they decided to do with it. There's this thing in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where at the last episode of every single time they go to the last episode, like whenever they last show the opening, they add in sound effects, and personally I don't like those that much. My friend likes them because when he watched JoJo, he said it was really good, but I personally did not like that element of it. I just found it to be a very strange and kind of not that great idea. So when they added sound effects into the opening in that, I didn't like, basically, was what I'm trying to say. So imagine doing that, those sound effects for the opening for all 12 episodes of the series. And that was Skeleton Knight. I feel like even though the song was good, the opening is completely ruined by those stupid sound effects. If it was just like the first episode and maybe the last episode, I would have been fine with it. But those sound effects play in the opening every single episode, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And that's why I ended up skipping the opening. Even though the song was good, I had to skip the opening because I couldn't stand those annoying sound effects. That irritated me. And that's why that's just a little side note that I didn't like the opening solely because they used sound effects through it, and I hated those sound effects. If they just did it for like the first and the last episode, it wouldn't have bothered me, but they do it for every single episode, and I feel like that completely ruined it, and I can't even enjoy the opening now, because unless I listen to the full version, I won't be able to enjoy the opening. Because the TV size one, I've struggled to find one that doesn't have the sound effects, and I hate those sound effects. But yeah, little side tangent over. Yeah, I just didn't like it that much. The ending theme is definitely a lot better, not just because it doesn't have any sound effects, just because I think the song is better. The one kind of thing I should talk about right now is the animation. The animation, I was quite surprised when they announced it would be 2D. Like, when I thought about the anime adaptation of Skeleton Knight, I'd imagine it be more CGI related, since there's a lot of details to Arc and his armor. But when I saw it was 2D, I was a little unsure how I'd feel about it. Like, I was a little unsure if it would be good or bad, so I went into it with a completely blank slate about what was going to happen. I don't even think I watched more than like one trailer, so I didn't really know what was going to happen. But honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the 2D animation actually worked quite well, and I definitely feel like it was handled quite well for a design like Arc's, which is heavily detailed. And the 2D animation actually worked quite well. The 3D animation, like the CGI, is not as great though. Like, there's this whole ending scene to one of the episodes where Chiome and Ariane are both they're both CGI for like the last shot, and it's so painfully obvious that they're CGI that when I see them running towards something, whatever the heck they were running towards, I can't remember right now, it was painful to watch. Like, it was just really hard to watch what was going on, because it hurt my eyes. It really stuck out. And Ponta was there too, and the CGI on Ponta wasn't any better. It looked ugly as heck, and the only time the CGI ever really looked good for me in the show was on Arc's design. Like, sure, it stood out a bit, but it still looked nice. But yeah. But going back to it, I do have to admit something. I did feel like it was getting a bit repetitive in the anime as well. Like I mentioned when I was reading the light novels, I felt like it was getting repetitive for 3 volumes straight, doing nothing but freeing slaves. But the same issue kind of happens in the anime, where they once again just do a bunch of slave freeing for the entire storyline. But thankfully, they also kind of go off on a few other side things that I kind of forgot about when reading the light novels. And I really like those. But overall, it was good, but not great. That's all I can really say. I had a good time, but I don't know how I'd feel about watching a season 2. It wasn't the worst thing I'd ever seen in my entire life, but I wouldn't say it's the best either. Overall, I liked Skeleton Knight, but I wouldn't put it as like a top 10 favorite anime or even top 20. It was just a fun anime where, as long as you thought about it as its own thing and not some kind of like Overlord clone, because it's not, I'd say it was still a lot of fun, but not the best thing I'd ever seen. So, yeah. We're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? I thought it was decent. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. I thought it was just a fun little series that, as long as you just turned your brain off and watched without much thinking, it can be a lot of fun. Is it the best thing ever, even if you turn off your brain? No, not really. It does get repetitive at times, but most of the jokes do hit, and I did have a pretty good time watching. And I'm happy to say that, because honestly, with how much I really don't like the light novels anymore, I'm glad that the anime reminded me about the few good parts I actually really enjoyed about this series. So that's why I have to give Skeleton Knight in Another World a 7 out of 10. Not the best, but not the worst either. And I think if you watch it once, you won't be hurting yourself at all. It was still pretty fun, and I thought it was a good little side anime to watch on the side if you just really like isekai anime. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. So thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I always welcome new anime fans to the channel. And yeah, I will see you all around. Peace.